Happy Christmas Eve! Hello witches, and welcome to a new video here on A Coven of Two, where we discuss witchcraft and activism. You can call me Isha, my pronouns are she, they, and this is the third video in the 12 Days of Yule series by Ivy the Occultist. On the third day of Yule, Ivy Corvus gave to us, talking about the last year of our practice. But before we get started, let me mention that I've opened a Ko-fi, which is basically an alternative to Patreon that takes less from creators. And on there you can do a one-off donation or a monthly subscription donation to support the work that I do here. And you can also get tarot readings, donate what you can from £5 onwards, and you can get a tarot reading with me, Italian style. So if you would like to support what I do here, you can head on to Ko-fi, and if you do so, thank you so much. I wasn't prepared for this, and then I realized, okay, reflecting on the last year of practice really is reflecting on how my practice has evolved in this new house. I don't know if you watched my video on Vesta or my very first video. I mentioned there, I started to practice in 2022 actually, but coming the new year, I had to move because we got evicted from the house that we had been in for 4 years. And so realistically, being evicted disrupted my practice there because every time that I wanted to prepare for something or do a ritual, I knew that it couldn't last. Basically, I didn't have that anchor, that rooting in the place that we were in, but that I had started to practice in. So it's all I knew, all I ever organized to have my magical space in a way. And then we moved here in February, and it took me a good moment to understand how to reset where different zones are. So the first thing that I did was actually setting up the Vesta altar, because we literally had the niche for a fireplace. So that felt very natural, realistically. And I didn't quite have a place to do rituals or spells. Before, it was stupidly simple. It was a cube from IKEA, a kallax, and that was my altar. And it was directed towards north. I would cast a circle around it. That was it. The layout of this place is different. It's a bit smaller than what we used to have. So it took me a moment to understand how to manage that. And a couple of times I just made makeshift altars on chairs. One of the things that I missed the most was having the room to do yoga. I had started along with my witchcraft practice. I had started to do daily yoga, and I had the room to do it. I got a yoga mat and properly I was serious in my business. There are actually a very good few yogi that consider bigger bodies, so that was also very, very helpful. And it was useful to also get meditating afterwards. So usually after I would do yoga, I would do I started with 5 minutes, I worked up to half an hour of meditation and visualization of just cleaning, cleansing, and realigning, reactivating my chakras. Because again, the one thing that I guess I am good at, comes very natural to me, is visualization. So I can spend a lot of time visualizing, that I could do. And I'm still finding my feet in terms of finding a space for yoga here. We have recently readdressed the second bedroom into being a storeroom / has room enough to be a witchy room. So now I have a sort of permanent altar there for any kind of ritual, although my cat loves it, and when I leave a glass of water there to signpost for the west, usually within a couple of days she has drunk it. And I consider it a blessing, because if she likes it, it means that it must have good energy around. I'm very glad. It's also the room where I do my witchy exercises, so every time that I do the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, I do it there. And I guess that's actually where my practice is currently evolving. I was really intimidated by ceremonial magic, because it can be gatekeepy, because it seems very complicated. It reminds me of coding in a way, and There's a lot of things that you have to know, and possibly you do not forget a comma or a dot, because meanings can be very, very different if you do, and you don't want to mess around with that level of spirits and power, potentially. So it's something that I didn't quite go near until in the last few months. I've mentioned it before, I got chatting with Astra, and she is a very good, very logical witch, astrological. She has the Test Tube and Cauldron podcast, where as a skeptical witch, her and other two witches approach every side of witchcraft in a very practical, pragmatical, and logical way. Love it. And she does ceremonial magic, Solomonic magic. So it was really interesting to hear from her how some of these sets of actions and words, because they come from a time that is so far gone, can have meaning in just learning how to do them and repeat them. And that's the reason why I've started to take on the LBRP in my daily practice, or I try to be as daily as possible, and I will concede to this. You know, I always say I am a witch that doesn't quite feel energy, I'm not psychic, I do things, I hope for the best. Something that impresses me about the LBRP is that the first time that I did it, even if I didn't do it perfectly, I had my upper lip for like an hour afterwards tingling. Like that tingling, the pins and needles that usually people say, oh, that's energy. So that was one thing. And recently, like I hadn't done it for like a week, and then I've done it again. And I guess when I stopped doing it for a moment and then I started doing it again, I take more seriously being precise, like I do not necessarily rush through it. And again, there was this, it wasn't even pins and needles, but it was a weird floaty feeling in my limbs. And when I managed to feel something with my 5 senses as a consequence of something that I've done that's supposed to be magical, that helps my mindset a lot. So I think where my practice has gone from where it started to where it's come at the end of this year is I am starting to consider more the older kind of magic. I haven't gone into the Lesser Key of Solomon, I haven't gone into Goetia or anything like that yet, but I like to learn about these things, because if they have existed for this long, I guess not only there's a reason to it, but it's interesting to see as magicians where we come from. So that holds quite the fascination for me. So that is definitely something that I didn't expect to get interested into, but I've got interested into in the last couple of months, and I think that's what I will focus for my next year of practice. And it will go in parallel to what my practice already is, which is daily deity work with Vesta and Venus, and basically daily work with my ancestors as well, because their altar is literally on top of the altar of Vesta. And as I mentioned before, they feel quite close related, so it's nice to have that kind of comfort. The main thing that I try to do when I do meditations or when I do try to do any kind of communication usually is calling upon either my deities or my ancestors. And again, I try and I hope for the best. I hope this was useful. I would love to hear how your practice has evolved. Are you a baby witch? Are you very seasoned in your practice and have you tried new things? Do let me know in the comments. And I will see you tomorrow with a video on divination, crafts and charms, which realistically I think will do divination because the craft part we have seen in the Yule log, no? Until then, I hope that we can axe the patriarchy together, because there's need for it.